Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. This battle was actually brought to my attention by Yusral, World of Warships community contributor. You're not going to be seeing this battle from his perspective. He had the extreme misfortune to be on the enemy team in this particular battle, and we're going to be watching it from the perspective of the Kitakaze player, who caused him so much trouble during the course of this battle. This is him now. His name is Voodoo Popeye. Great name, by the way. Well done. And he's divisioned up with the Seattle. It's a tier 9 battle. They're both top tier. The Kitakaze is one of the newer Japanese gunboat destroyers. Its big brother at tier 10 is the Harugumo. And you can probably think of the Kitakaze as an Akazuki, upgraded in just about every way imaginable. It has 8 100mm guns with a base 3-second reload. Now, the problem when these ships were introduced was that because they were only 100mm guns, and this was exactly the same problem that the Akazuki had, was that in order for this ship to really be effective, you needed a 14-point captain. This was to ensure that you had both the concealment expert and inertia fuse high explosive shell skills. The reason for this was because the guns were such low caliber, only 100mm. Using the standard divide by 6 penetration calculator, that meant that the high explosive shells fired by these 100mm guns could only penetrate 16mm of armour. And even tier 8, 9 and 10 destroyers have up to 19mm of armour plating, which meant that the high explosive shells on these guns were basically useless for just about anything other than starting fires. And against an angled target, the armour-piercing shells would just bounce. So these ships got buffed, and the base penetration of their 100mm guns was increased to 25mm, which is pretty nice. But if you already had a 14-point captain, and let's face it, most people playing tier 9 and 10 ships have at least 10-point captains. But if you had a 14-point captain with the IFHE skill, that meant that these tiny little 100mm guns could actually penetrate 32mm of armour. So the bow, stern and deck plating of most tier 8, 9 and 10 battleships. And remember, these guns fire every 3 seconds. Yeah, this thing is a deeply scary destroyer. Voodoo Popeye has just deployed a smokescreen. It's not for him, he doesn't need it. He's not in danger of being spotted by anything. The smokescreen is for his division mate in the Seattle. And there's going to be some really good teamwork going on between these two guys throughout the course of this game. They're going to be creating all kinds of problems for the enemy team. He's already well on the way to capping out Alpha. Which is just as well because nobody else on his team appears to be getting to grips with Bravo or Charlie. Okay. Alpha is capped. Enemy target spotted. Took this zone with no resistance whatsoever. Let's see what we can do about sinking a few ships. Looks like the enemy team have started without us. We've already lost a destroyer. Oh well, never mind. So, while we're waiting, what exactly is it that the Kitakaze has over its predecessor at tier 8, the Akazuki? Because the Akazuki was a fairly mean little gunboat. And the answer to that question is, well, pretty much everything. The Akazuki's biggest Achilles heel was its speed, or lack of. It was dangerously slow for a destroyer, with a top speed of only 33 knots, and while the Kitakaze is certainly no speed demon, its speed is at least acceptable at 36 knots. And just about everything else that matters is an incremental improvement. Okay, the guns have the same blisteringly quick 3-second reload, but the ship itself is faster. It's more manoeuvrable, it's got better torpedo launchers, it's got better concealment, and it also has access to that tier 9 module slot, which can make a really big difference. There's the torpedo reload booster in effect. 2 sets of torpedoes launched against the Bismarck. The Tirpitz. Almost had a Jingles moment. This, of course, is one of those Japanese destroyers that doesn't have to choose between a smokescreen and a torpedo reload booster, which means that while it only has the one torpedo launcher, the torpedoes are very good, and when it needs to, it can fire them twice. Those torpedoes are on the way to the Tirpitz, but that lion is looking like a very, very juicy target. Now look at how much health that lion has. 32,000 health. Now, he is going to pop his heel during the course of this engagement, and we all know what British Tier 9 and 10 battleship heels are like. They can basically print themselves a new ship. But look at this rate of fire. Also, you can tell from the coloured tracer that Voodoo Popeye has Isiroko Yamamoto as the captain of his Kitakaze. And he comes with his own little bag of tricks. We'll go into those in a moment. But for now, just look at the beating that this line is receiving while activating that super overpowered British Tier 9 and 10 battleship heel. Doesn't really seem to be doing him a whole amount of good, is it? Don't forget, he started this engagement on 32,000 health. And he's managed to gain about 1,000. I'm not entirely sure buffing the base penetration of these 100mm guns with high explosive shells to 25mm was an entirely good idea. 3 of those torpedoes did hit the turrets, by the way, for a total of about 21,000 damage. But the other 51,000... it's pretty much all on that line. Wow. I mean, that illustrates 2 things. Don't forget, the Lion started on 32,000 health. Voodoo Popeye has inflicted 50,000 damage on him, and he's still at around 30,000 after using the heal. So 1, that heal is ridiculous, and 2, holy shit, look at the firepower that this destroyer can put out on a battleship. It's absolutely insane. And that's on a battleship. I mean, he's nearly sunk him. God help a destroyer that has to deal with this kind of punishment. And it's even worse on the Harugumo at tier 10. It gets an extra turret with 2 additional guns. And 2 more guns might not sound like a lot, but well, that's an additional 25% damage per minute. And you've seen what this thing can do with just 8 guns. Yeah. It's interesting that they've buffed the base penetration of these 100mm high explosive shells to 25mm, because they could only penetrate 16mm of armour plating and not 19mm, because the British Tier 9 and 10 destroyers have 113mm guns, and they can also not penetrate 19mm of armour plating. But they're not getting no high explosive penetration buff. They pretty much have to fire armour piercing at even Tier 8, 9 and 10 destroyers in order to reliably inflict damage and hope that they're not angled. There's Voodoo Popeye's first kill, by the way. He's firing from smoke at targets that have been spotted by his team. Torpedoes incoming, but they got spotted nice and early as well. You see, this is the difference between the British Tier 9 and 10 and the Japanese Tier 9 and 10 destroyers. The Japanese can just spam high explosive at everything. They're kind of easy mode compared to the British destroyers, which have to use armour piercing. Now, admittedly, their armour piercing is pretty good, but you actually have to choose ammunition types in the British Tier 9 and 10 destroyers. You have to think about what you're doing. You don't really have to do that in the Kitakaze or the Harugumo. Oh, and he's taken 1 torpedo. And that torpedo did do a lot of damage. So there's a bit of a plot twist here, because now he has less than 1,000 health, and the battle is only just starting. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but the Lion has actually sunk as a result of the fires that Voodoo Popeye set. So he's already on 2 kills. Now it's the turn of the Z46 to suffer his wrath. He's already burning, so obviously his damage control's on cooldown. The high explosive hail of fire is interrupted briefly as the Z46 manages to go unspotted. And Voodoo Popeye's smoke is about to expire. He's joined by the Seattle as the torpedo bombers are coming in from the rear, and the Seattle starts engaging the Megami. Voodoo Popeye obviously anxious not to give his position away now that he has less than 1,000 health. And the Seattle pops his defensive fire and obliterates the squadron of torpedo bombers, but Voodoo Popeye did get momentarily spotted by the aircraft, and there are some shots coming in from the Z46 concealed in the smokescreen. Narrowly misses, getting obliterated by the Megami, does take a hit from the Z46, knocks out one of his rear turrets, and reduces him to 700 health. Now, he doesn't have a heal, But he does have Isiroko Yamamoto as his captain, as he fires some torpedoes into the smoke screen, triggers the reload booster, and then fires some more torpedoes into the smoke screen. You see, having Isiroko Yamamoto as the captain of your ship comes with two unique buffs. Now, he's already missed out on the first buff, which would have granted him an extra charge on every consumable mounted on board his ship, but in order to get that, you have to earn the First Blood achievement. The Second Wind achievement, however, does come with a heal, as well as a fairly hefty buff to the reload of your guns. In order to get that buff active, however, you have to earn the Kraken Unleashed achievement. Still, he's now on 3 kills, so he's well on the way. Oh, that very unfortunate hipper that Voodoo Popeye just claimed as his 3rd kill was Yuzral, by the way, World of Warships community contributor, and the reason why you're watching this replay. Those torpedoes are looking fairly spicy. There's a good chance they're going to hit something. Oh dear, I think we're about to witness our fort. Yep, there it is. Torpedo and a double strike, and there go the fireworks, and there goes the heal. That is the Isiroko Yamamoto Second Wind skill. So there goes the free heal. I think that's going to have him to about 50% health, and it takes around about 2 minutes to actually work its magic. But that's not the only part of the Second Wind buff. Let's not forget it's also a 34% buff to the reload speed of your guns, and I'm pretty sure that Voodoo Popeye is also running Adrenaline Rush. And let's not forget these guns have a base 3-second reload in the first place, so if this ship wasn't scary before, it's downright terrifying now. Enemy torpedoes, spotted well in advance, thanks to the Seattle. And now a choice of targets. Who's he going to go for? Or is he going to do the sensible thing and wait for this heal to take effect? Or is he just going to say, what the hell, toss the dice, let the chips land where they may, and go for it? And he is actually going to go for it, which is incredibly bad news for the Megami. They're both focusing, both Voodoo Popeye and his division mate, Scimitar, in the Seattle. Note how relatively ineffective the armor-piercing shells are. So he switches to the high explosive, and you may not have actually noticed him switching to the high explosive because the reload is so incredibly fast that there was barely a pause in the firing. And there's his 6th kill. The Megami didn't even know what hit him. I think these guns are firing every 2 seconds now. Now, Scimitar in the Seattle over there did take a fair old beating from the Megami before they managed to sink him. And now Voodoo Popeye is getting a taste of his own medicine from the Akazuki on the enemy team, but he's very, very wisely chosen not to return fire, and he has now gone undetected. So the Akazuki is now firing blind. But pay attention to what Scimitar over there in the very, very low health Seattle is doing. At first it looked like he was trying to sneak around the island and ambush the Akazuki, but, well, he doesn't really have the health for it. You've seen what the Akazuki can do. It's not that much worse than the Kitakaze. What he is in fact doing is line up in cover behind the island and just waiting for his radar to come off cooldown, which it's about to any second now. Wait for it. There it is. Oh, there's the Akazuki. How many salvos do you think Voodoo Popeye can have in the air on the way to that Akazuki before the Akazuki even realises he's being shot at? Look at this. And the Akazuki is firing armor piercing, which straight away tells me he does not have the IFHE skill. So, Voodoo Popeye just angles away from him, rendering his armor piercing almost completely ineffective. Does take a few nasty hits from that Anago over there, however. Still detected. Using the torpedo lead indicator to try to guesstimate which way and how quickly that Anago is going. And he's gone undetected, as the Akazuki was forced to smoke up to avoid obliteration. Anago's made a sudden course change, which means his guns are all going to be pointing in the wrong direction. Relatively safe, even on this amount of low health, to subject him to another deluge of high explosive spam. That's high caliber already, by the way. In fact, it has been for quite some time now, with well over 150,000 damage done, and 6 kills to his name. And shockingly, it's only now, after capping 2 of the flags, sinking 6 enemy ships, getting high caliber, Kraken Unleashed, 6 kills, and a double strike. And it's only now that his team are actually in the lead. Although they're not in the lead by much, and the enemy team do have Udaloy capping Charlie. He's detected again, of course, which is always bad news. Torpedo drop coming in, probably aimed at the Massachusetts. It does look like it's been scattered, though, judging by the divergence on the torpedoes. Not entirely sure who did that. There is a Hipper to the south, but I don't think... Well, possibly they're in range of the Hipper's defensive AA fire. Although it's also possible that the Massachusetts managed to put his catapult fighter up in time. That would have done the same job, and he does in fact have his fighter up, so maybe that was it. The important thing, of course, is that Voodoo Popeye is no longer spotted. Although the enemy team are well on the way to flipping Charlie. The Akazuki's just popped up again. I have to admit, I was expecting the Akazuki to go for Alpha and flip it while it was unprotected. But it looks like the Akazuki and the Atago are turning back, and they're going for that Hipper, because the Hipper is the only thing that stands between them and flipping Bravo. So things are about to get interesting, one way or the other. Detected by aircraft again. Looks like the enemy carrier is determined to take that Massachusetts out, and there's the Udaloy. Now the Udaloy has pretty impressive guns, but they're kind of pointing in the wrong direction. And he doesn't have an awful lot of health. And it's going to take him a while to turn the ship, and therefore the guns around. And he's decided that discretion is the better form of valor. He's managed to get the front turrets firing. He's going a little bit too fast to safely stay inside that smoke screen. Yep, it's all over. There's kill number 7. But he did manage to score some hits and do some damage. And Voodoo Popeye is down to well under 1,000 health. Again. And he's detected by aircraft. Friendly carrier, however, is trying to do something about that. Vectored fighters overhead to intercept. Shot them all down. Voodoo Popeye is once again undetected. But there are some shots coming in from that Akazuki. One of them hits, does minimal damage. Akazuki starts smoking up. And now they're both blind firing each other in concealment. And it's probably going to be a question of who gets the first hit. Although the Akazuki does have more health, but he doesn't have a lot. And he definitely doesn't have enough. And that is kill number 8. The team are now up to well over 900 points, and they have 2 caps in hand to the enemy's 1. The enemy team can still do this, but they're going to have to start sinking ships, and they're going to have to start sinking them quick. The Massachusetts is probably looking like the number 1 target, but he has proved remarkably adept at avoiding taking damage so far. And Voodoo Popeye is not out of this fight yet. He's got himself some nice solid island cover that he can lob shells over without fear of being detected. There are no enemy aircraft nearby to spot him. And that Atago has just sailed right into shooting range once again. And look at this. Look at the rate of fire. It's like the 4th of July in Central Park. It's like the bicentennial celebrations. Right now, I think that Atago is just praying for Voodoo Popeye's team to reach 1,000 points so that this punishment will stop. And in fact, that's exactly what happens. So, 181,000 damage and 8 ships sunk for Voodoo Popeye in the Japanese Tier 9 destroyer, the Kitakaze. A quite frankly terrifying ship that only gets scary when it goes up a tier, gains an extra turret and 2 more guns, and a 25% buff to the already ludicrous damage per minute. Voodoo Popeye, thank you very much for making this replay available. Yusrael, thank you for bringing it to my attention. And my commiserations for having the great misfortune of being on the enemy team in this one. Everybody else, I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.